Okay, so my name's Sarah Lilley. I'm currently the Deputy Head of the Child Protection Team at Save the Children UK. And I've been working at Save the Children for nearly 7 years. I've started here in a different role and I've just recently moved into the deputy position. My work involves leading the design of monitoring and evaluation for our child protection programmes. That's the kind of core area of work that I cover, and also leading research for our child protection programmes also. Okay, so I started, I guess my interest in economics started at A-level. I took a economics A-level, and within that we covered development economics, which was great and really inspired me and really interested me as a topic. And that was really when I started talking about, I'd really like to be working in development economics. And the teacher that I had, I think, was kind of quite an inspiration and really encouraged that. So that was where it started. And talking to him, he advised me about where to go to university because I had an interest in development economics. So I did my undergraduate degree at Sussex University, a combination of economics with development. And Sussex has a very strong development department, so it was a really good place to bring the two together and to really focus on the development economics aspect, which I really enjoyed. So I did my undergraduate degree there, and when I left there I I spent 3 months in Brazil, not doing anything related to economics. At that point I'd kind of had a break really, and I went just to it was really a cultural exchange to learn about living in another place. I worked at a language school, working with adult learners who were also working with them on English language. So it was not an experience, I guess, that informed my work as an economist, but it definitely is important in terms of informing your ability to work with other cultures and to understand different people. So when I returned from Brazil, I was looking around applying for jobs at that time, and my first job was as a researcher in an organisation called the Commonwealth Telecommunications Organisation. And essentially it was a very small organisation working on ICT for development issues, which was a topic that I had never worked on or I hadn't studied before. I hadn't really studied it at Sussex, and it was a really good kind of entry into the development world, if you like. Not working as an economist specifically, but through a general research role. And the kinds of projects that we looked at there were how mobile telephones are used in communities for things like getting farming information and to support economic development and also to support education, various different things. So that was one type of project that we looked at. We also looked at how governments in developing countries, what influence they have on kind of global telecommunications and ICT issues and laws, which was also very interesting to start looking at power issues and development from that wider perspective. And actually, even though ICT for development is not an area that I've continued working in, it was something that kind of actually is cross-cutting and has cropped up again and again, so it's been really useful to have that. It was just 1 year, but that 1 year exposure to that particular topic for development. So I did my year of research there, and while I was there I applied to the Government Economic Service, and my interest and awareness of the Government Economic Service had actually come when I was back at Sussex University. After our first year, it was actually of the economics degree, the GES had come to the university on their kind of undergraduate tour and had presented to us about the GES and the kinds of jobs you could get. So I'd already heard about that and had kind of registered it in my mind that that was an opportunity that would be worth looking at. So in that, while I was applying, so I applied to the GES basically from that while I was working at the Commonwealth organisation, and the process took quite a time, so I was able to kind of work and do that at the same time. And my ambition had really been, and I'd gone into the application thinking, I want to work at DFID. That's what I was had kind of been dreaming of, I guess, since doing my economics A level. That was my ambition really, was to go to DFID. What I didn't realise when I made the application was that you needed to have a master's at that time to get into DFID through the GES. So although I'd put DFID as my first choice, I wasn't allocated into DFID, but I was allocated into the Department for Education, which had been my second choice. So I took a kind of meander really back out of the development world and into the world of UK government and economics in the UK policy setting. So I spent 6 years working at the Department for Education, and I guess I always say to people that I talk to who are interested in either in economics or in development economics or a job like the one I'm currently in, is that I really recommend the Government Economics Service. It was, I think, a kind of a fantastic way to really understand how you apply, obviously, economics in a job, because that's what you are doing. You're working as an economist, but in Department for Education at least, we worked in multidisciplinary teams. So we had social researchers, operational researchers, and economists working together on different kind of issues. And that was, I think that was really helpful to really understand the value of economics when you're looking at policy in the UK, as I was, or anywhere, and how your skills complement those of others around you, and how you can kind of work together and really bring the economics skills and expertise to that mix. And one of the things about the GES as you enter is that you actually move role each year. So I went into the Department of Education, and then each year, for the first 4 years that I was there, I rotated into a different area of policy. So I started off in higher education policy, and the main kinds of work we were doing there was designing and overseeing and analysing the National Student Income and Expenditure Survey. So looking at how much students spend, what they spend it on, and then conducting analysis to set the limits for student loans, and to look at policy around lending to students and the costs for students and fees as well. So I contributed analysis to that area of policy, which was very interesting, having kind of recently come from university, obviously, to then be looking at it from the other side, from the government side, from the policy side, and to be analysing that data. So that was the first role that I was in, and then in the second year I moved across to a team that was looking at social mobility in the UK. So I guess this is just to say that you get a real kind of breadth, actually, of different topics, which I think is, again, very helpful for understanding how you apply general economics skills to a range of different issues, and you can bring over and over again the skills that you've learnt. So in the social mobility area, we were looking at how, for young people, how the income of their parents affected their own income and position, economic position. Then after that role, I moved into child protection in the department, and that's kind of where I developed really the interest that I've got in my role today, and that was looking at analysing policies around child protection in the UK, so looking at kind of cost-benefit analysis and value for money of the government's policies around supporting families and residential care for young people. And yeah, the core work really was cost-benefit analysis, value for money analysis, and options appraisals for different policies. So I actually worked for a few years in child protection in the Department of Education, because I moved into a kind of promoted economic advisor role. And at that point, sorry, it wasn't actually at that point, I'm getting my dates wrong. It was between the social mobility role that I was in and the child protection role. The Department of Education sponsored me to do my Masters in Economics at UCL. And that's also a really positive aspect of the GES scheme, is that most departments, as I understand it, or used to offer sponsorship to do Masters for economists. So I took a year out and I went to UCL and completed a Masters in Economics, and within that I opted into the development economics modules, which were, I think, which was a really good experience. It was certainly a challenging experience in terms of the kind of rigour of the course at UCL, and kind of perhaps quite different to what I had been doing before. But I think that really helped to develop my confidence around econometrics and the more the kind of the pure math side of economics, really. So after my Masters, I went back to the Department for Education, and then was in the child protection team working there. And then after about 2 years at the Department for Education in the child protection team, I happened to see the advert for the job at Save the Children, which I'm currently in. And I'd been thinking, I'd spent by that time, 6 years, including my Masters at the Department for Education, and I'd really enjoyed it and got so much out of it. I mean, I can't underestimate really how much I got out of that period in terms of learning how to apply economics, in a real job, doing value for money analysis on a day-to-day basis, and really working with policymakers to kind of contribute thinking to policy decisions. So that was hugely valuable. But I started to think I would really like to go back, or to move into development, to kind of go back to the dream, the ambition that I'd had in the very beginning, and to try to make my way, my career path, meander back to development economics. So I started looking for different jobs, and I saw the job at Save the Children, and it was the job that I entered when I joined was the kind of monitoring and evaluation advisor in the child protection team. So what was really good, and I kind of think of it as a fluke, but I guess all the stars aligned in some way to be able to move into a role that had development, and it had kind of an analytical role, evaluation, and child protection, which is the role that I'd just come from in the Department of Education. So it was working in development economics, but in the niche of child protection, which I'd really developed an interest in from my role in the UK government, working on UK child protection issues. So it kind of all came together. I think I was quite lucky, really, to find a role like that. And I've been here. I was in the monitoring evaluation role for the last 6 years, and basically that has the key types of work that I've done are evaluating Save the Children's child protection programmes. That's like the core of what I do. And when I joined Save the Children, the child protection team, and I think this is probably a kind of global issue, is that there's very few economists working in child protection. It was actually the same in the Department for Education in child protection. There's in mainstream education, for example, in primary, secondary, there's huge numbers of economics and academics working on economic analysis of education issues. But in child protection, it was much fewer people, economists, working in that area. So to come to Save the Children with an economics background into this role was was really amazing, because I could basically start whole new areas of work and bring skills here that the team hadn't had before, hadn't had access to, which was really fulfilling and kind of interesting in terms of the work I was able to do. So it's a lot about evaluating projects, and it really has combined kind of social research and economics. So I think that's probably I'm not in a pure economist role, I'm definitely in a economist researcher type role, an analytical researcher role, which suits me really well. I really like the combination of bringing economic analysis and social research together. Okay, so I think, in terms of tips, if I was doing this again now, I guess there's a few things that I would suggest, and one would be about being open-minded about the particular area that you might specialise in. So coming as an economist, you do have a kind of general set of skills which you can apply to so many different areas of work. I've chosen where I am currently is I'm applying in the area of child protection, which when I left university I had not even thought of. I didn't even know that was a development sector. I had no inkling that was something that I would be able to use economics skills in. We kind of traditionally think of working in more kind of central poverty alleviation or livelihoods work, or even kind of education and health. But actually there is a breadth of, there's much more than the kind of traditional development areas that you can work in as an economist. So I guess one tip would be to really look across the spectrum of different areas that you can work in. And again, I think for me in child protection, there really are very few economists working, which obviously works in your favour, because it's not as though there's a huge pool of people applying for jobs, and there's a lot you can drive, you can be innovative, you can do things that haven't been done before, which is really exciting. You're kind of, you're paving a way in some ways. So that would be kind of one tip, is look broadly and keep an open mind. And I went into the Department for Education. That's not really what I wanted. I wanted to go to DFID, but I got placed in the Department for Education. I could have said no and kept on pursuing development, but I did it to have, again, to kind of develop the generic skills that could then be applied later on. And I think it's about building up those transferable skills, even if you're not straight on the route that you want to be on. You can meander back in different ways. Okay, so I think another tip would be that, again, I'm not in a role that has a title economist, but there are many jobs, and I'm just thinking even within Save the Children, there's probably 16 roles in our London office that I can think of at the moment that an economist could be working in and could use their economic skills in, and only one of them has the title economist. So I think it's also about, another kind of tip is to not feel constrained to just look at jobs and roles that have that kind of economist title, but to look at roles where you can bring your economic skills. Analytical roles, it needs to be some kind of analytical role, obviously, but to look at roles like that you can apply economic skills in and still do economics work, but maybe in different kind of roles in a development organisation like Save the Children. And in many NGOs, we've only just, for example, recruited an economist. It's a completely new role. We've never had one before. And I think it's quite uncommon for NGOs to have economist roles. But actually, NGOs desperately need economist skills. So there's a big opportunity to be able to use your skills and kind of influence work. But maybe it's through roles that are, don't have that kind of economist title. So that would be another suggestion of how to find appropriate roles. I would just also recommend anybody to go, to to go through the government economic service if you want to work as an economist, because I just can't kind of praise it enough really as a really interesting, really valuable first job. And obviously I did it for a good number of years, but it was the kind of investment in your skills, the opportunities to work on policy, and I guess that's something also that I've really found in Save the Children. Now, like, I'm working in a role where our programmes are advocating to and influencing governments in other countries, and having worked in the government in the UK and sat in that analytical policy role, you really understand the kinds of evidence that governments want to see, the policymakers want to see, the kinds of discussions that they're going to be having, the kinds of ways that they're going to view NGOs or organisations like Save the Children coming to them. So it really has helped to have that kind of government perspective, I guess, policymaker perspective, to now be working in an NGO that's trying to influence governments. And I think that the GES just offers a range of opportunities to work on different issues. And then as I did, and I could have gone from the Department of Education and applied for jobs in DFID. I chose not to do that because I saw this opportunity at Save the Children, but that would also have been quite a smooth route really to go, and many people do that, to go into another department and then cut across to DFID. And I think as long as you're thinking about, are these skills transferable, ensuring that what you're doing is something transferable, then that's the main thing, even if you're taken a little bit off your path.